meeting of the Colerain Township. The meeting of Colerain Township Board of I'm trying to be something I'm not. The meeting of the Colerain Township Zoning Commission will come to order. Would you please all stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next, would everybody please silence their cell phone? Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Faring? Here. Mr. Grody?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Here. Mr. Westfall?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Okay, we don't have any alternate here, do we? Okay. Tonight, since Mr. Taylor is not here, we're going to dispense with the reading of the minutes, and we will read them at the next meeting. Next on the agenda is public address. This is where anyone who wants to address the commission on anything that is not on the agenda, this is where they do it. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring before the... Okay, none so appearing, will go on. Next on the agenda is a final development plan. It's a minor modification to a final development plan, ZA 2014-09, Chick-fil-A, 9470 Colerain Avenue. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Give me 1 second to get my PowerPoint working correctly here. Apologize. All right. So before you this evening is a minor modification to the Chick-fil-A final development plan. If you'll recall, the final development plan was approved in March of 2015, and then you heard a minor modification before this board in May of this year. That was approved with 3 conditions. That was specifically to address the circulation and parking concerns that were found on the site once the store opened in April of this year. So a lot of what you'll hear this evening is very similar to what you heard in May, with the addition of then request for change in signage. The change in the parking layout actually changes the drive-through layout, reduces the number of parking spaces, again, the request to modify signage, and then modification and location of lighting and landscaping due to the drive-through change. As you saw in May, this location, the aerials have not yet been updated on Cages, but the location at the intersection of Colerain and Mall Drive is zoned as planned district and surrounded completely by planned district business. This is the existing approved site plan. I want to draw your attention to this area highlighted in yellow. This is a landscape island that in tonight's proposal will be removed to accommodate a 3rd drive-through lane. If you follow my arrow here, this lane of drive-through will actually eliminate all of the parking that's in front of that building there to accommodate better circulation. If you've been out to the site recently, they have modified the way the circulation on the property to force drive-through to go from to enter the property from the south side right here near the drive-through, rather than in the overall counterclockwise motion that we started with and then modified to angled parking in May. And now attempting to add another drive-through lane because the parking that exists is still quite a challenge. This is an updated landscape plan. I recognize that the details difficult to see on here, but what I did outline for you in the staff summary are the overall changes to the landscape plan. Really what you'll see is that there is no significant change to our shade or our ornamental trees. What we did see was an overall loss in the perennial and annual color plantings, which you'll see as a condition that staff would like to recommend to you that those find a new location somewhere on the site. Part of the request for tonight is signage. 3 sign requests in front of you tonight. One of them is indicated here as A on the site plan. This would be for a new monument sign. B indicated on this site plan here actually is an existing sign. It's almost square logo of Chick-fil-A. They'd like to replace it with a new sign. And then D on the sign here, on the south facade of the building here would be an additional sign. That is a sign that was not, at the time of approval, was not allowed outright per the zoning code. And since we have had a text amendment which allows for signage facing those main entryways in shopping centers. So if this were coming to you as a new sign request, particularly outside of a planned district, this would be a sign that staff would sign off on and approve without any other board's approval. Because this is part of a modification to a final development plan and signage was specifically addressed in that original FDP discussion, that's why it's in front of you tonight. But I just want to make you aware that that is at this time something that staff would have been able to just outright approve. The change in signage here for B on the north side of the building would also be something that staff would generally outright approve. But again, we're in an FDP. The big question for discussion tonight will be the monument sign, sign A, shown here on the proposed modification. There was a condition on the approval of the final development plan in March of 2015 that there was a condition placed, and all it says in the notes here is that no additional freestanding signage shall be added to the site. It is my understanding, if you're familiar with this site, let me skip ahead real quick and show you, where is it? That sign there is a very large, very substantial, non-conforming sign. That is owned by, obviously, the landlord of the shopping center that sits just behind Chick-fil-A. I believe at the time, during the discussion of the approval of the final development plan, it was understood, or at least assumed, that Chick-fil-A would have a tenant panel on that sign. That has never come through, and in fact, the landlord has denied that request. If you have any specific questions about that agreement or the lack thereof, you may want to ask the applicant who is here. There is a representative from Chick-fil-A here this evening. He may be able to provide you some clarity on that. But nonetheless, Chick-fil-A essentially has very, very minimal signage. I'm going to jump back to where I was very quickly. So they are requesting this monument sign. It is 9.5 feet tall plus a base of nearly 2 feet. So staff would like to recommend approval. This would be within code, but staff would like to recommend that we condition this to 10 feet total. Right across the street, the McDonald's signage, the monument sign, looks very nice there, but it is only 6 feet tall, and when a minivan parks next to it, you actually can't see the sign. So it makes sense that this might be a little taller right along Colerain Avenue there, but I think it'd be nice if we could limit that to 10 feet total. That's totally up to the discretion of this board and whatever conversation you want to have. This would be the sign on both the north and south sides of the building. It is 9 feet 5 inches by 4 feet, so just about 38, little under 38 square feet, well within what would be approvable for the size of this building. This is the existing sign that Chick-fil-A would like to replace with this sign. I do not have measurements on this sign currently. Best guess is that it's more than likely under 20 square feet. And that is essentially the only, there's this sign and then there's one of these signs. This sign is on the north side of the building facing Mall Drive, and a sign like this is on the Colerain Avenue side of the building. That is the only signage for Chick-fil-A at this point in time. So very quickly, so you can see what's happening here, this is looking westward into the site where the drive-through will eventually, if approved tonight, this is where the drive-through will actually start. and begin to wrap around the building to the left there. Again, that existing signage that Chick-fil-A would like to replace upon your approval. This is the landscape island that would be removed for, to accommodate that extra drive-through lane that would run essentially right where that white SUV is sitting. The building is to your left here, Colerain Avenue is to your right. And then looking at the signage, and I apologize, I probably should have zoomed in on here. This is your existing Chick-fil-A signage. I'm actually standing in the parking lot, so that's how small that sign is. And that is their only actual Chick-fil-A identifier at this point in time. The request is for the signage to be added on this face of the building here. Again, something that staff would typically approve outside of the FDP process. And then again, that monument sign, I guess we can't really call that a monument sign, that very large pole sign, best guess, this is probably 40 plus feet tall, that Chick-fil-A has been unsuccessful in getting a tenant panel on that sign. Where this picture is taken from is roughly where the monument sign would be placed. So a couple quick notes on the parking arrangement, because we are requesting to modify from 30 total spaces to 20 total spaces. So even more of a decrease than we've seen. If you've been out to the site, though, you've noticed that almost no one is actually parking on the site. They are already utilizing the shared parking in the shopping center. I just want to remind you of the discussion we had in May about the commercial center parking analysis that was completed, saying that the overall site could accommodate more parking. The updated parking agreement from the landlord, which was a blanket agreement saying they could absorb as many spaces as they needed to accommodate Chick-fil-A. And then the memo from Colerain Chief of Police, Mark Denny, about the high number of incidents there that have caused some concern within the police department, multiple responses, as well as our fire department when there are any sort of injuries. Again, on the signage, those two quick notes that the zoning code has been updated for that, which would accommodate for that south facade wall signage, and that the original intent was for the tenant, for Chick-fil-A to use the non-conforming signage with a tenant panel on that very large sign, and they've been unsuccessful in that. All of that said, staff would like to recommend to this board approval of the minor modification to the FDP with the following conditions and variances. That the ground monument sign not be more than 10 feet in total height above grade, including the base of the structure. That an updated landscape plan include the replacement of 46 perennial annual color plantings. A variance from section 8.3 site development standards to accommodate for the increased impervious surface ratio from 80% to 81.9%. And a variance from section 13.3 and section 13.4.7 to provide for a total of 20 parking spaces on the site. The removal of 10 spaces is to be covered in the applicant's shared parking agreement with the shopping center owner. Staff would be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Mrs. Smith?
I don't have any questions at the present time. I'd like to wait on the presentation from the applicant.
Mr. Grody, I'm great with faces, no good with names.
Jenna, you said that because of the new language on signage that we approved some time ago, the south and north requests are something that staff could approve. Is the monument sign something that staff would have approved or could have approved without bringing it back?
Yes, sir. It was just that one condition from the final development plan that prohibited staff from approving that.
Okay, so if that were not there, not saying what you would do, but you would have it within your purview to approve or decline that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ferry?
I have just a couple questions. The guy that owns the monument sign owns the development, right? Not the monument, I'm sorry, not the monument sign, the existing sign that's there. And I was here when we heard all this for the original. And, they were dealing with the parking lot issues, shared parking and everything else. And it wasn't an issue then about using the sign. And now we come down the road a little ways, and now that the building's in, he says you can't use the sign. surely I would think somebody working out a contract to do a lease on a building like that and work out shared parking and everything else would have at least mentioned something about the sign. And now they're coming back with, we want a monument sign because this man won't let us put our sign on the sign that was already there. I'm not comfortable with that at all.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that it's my understanding ownership of the shopping center itself changed, and possibly Mr. Osborne can speak to some of these changes, but it's my understanding that ownership changed somewhere along the way, and it was done kind of quietly. So I think some of those assumed agreements went away. I don't really have the details of exactly how that went down, but what it did was create a problem where this particular location has almost no signage. And, however the board wants to address that, and I'm sure, like I said, Mr. Osborne might be able to provide you some more detail on that, but I don't think it was something that was foreseen by staff, this board, or even Chick-fil-A themselves.
But they were able to flex with more parking now, the new owner?
That's my understanding of it. So with that shared parking agreement was in place before this transition, as was the updated shared parking agreement in May. This is why you didn't see a signage request in May. But we're already back.
There was a request for the sign, and we turned them down on the sign, the monument sign.
On the FDP?
On
Okay.
the original, yes. That was an issue then. And I understand the sign. I think the sign that they want to put up there, the monument sign's a nice-looking sign, but we still have to deal with the old sign that's going to be there forever.
Which is a non-conforming sign, so
Right,
as far
right,
as
right.
enforcement
And
goes,
they're not going to take it down, because the minute they take it down, it's down, so. Sure. If you got something to say, great.
Just
1 minute.
wait, whoa, 1 minute.
Sure.
You'll get your turn just a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you done?
I'm done. I just feel like this whole project, when it first came to us, it was a tough site to work with, size and everything else, and I think we bent a lot of rules and a lot of lines to make this work, and they keep coming back in for more and more and more, and we keep bending and bending and bending, and I think it's going to open a floodgate for other people to keep asking us to bend and bend and bend.
In fact, I went back and looked at my notes from the March 2015 meeting, and I was the one that brought up, I was seated that evening, and I was the one that brought up the pole sign and asked the representatives if they intended to make use of that. And the response then was they had thought about it, but it's a good idea, they would investigate it. So it wasn't a crucial piece in the package on the table that night.
so you're saying it was not a crucial piece? Okay. I can't speak to that meeting. I wasn't here with the township at that meeting, so you're going to have to rely on your best memory of what the discussion was at that meeting. I hope you had a chance to go back and review the video from that meeting.
It was a very challenging site, with everything, with the green space, with the setbacks for the road, and, everything. It was actually just too small for what they wanted to do with, and we worked with them the best we could.
Which is something we see, as staff, we see it in both plan, which is the advantage to plan districts, is getting the redevelopment of an underutilized or non-utilized site. And there is some flexibility in that. The bigger challenge from staff's perspective is actually when we see that in single letter zoning, because they are outright variances, and those lists get very lengthy on sites that clearly just don't work. This is a site that there are quite a few challenges, but we're already up and running, and so I think it's a good opportunity for this board to take a look at trying to continue working to fix some of these challenges. And at this point, it's my understanding from Mr. Osborne that those two big challenges are the drive-through and then the signage. There is almost no signage on the site. So how do we go about fixing that? Who carries that burden? This is why staff felt like it was okay to request, because they're allowed, for that monument sign, they're allowed to go to 15 feet. And staff was saying, why don't we try and tone it back a little bit let's make sure we just get something that looks good, looks clean, doesn't overdo it, because there is that massive sign there, but let's get you some signage. That's why the recommendation from staff is actually to condition that down to 10 feet. You're obviously free to do with that what you like, but it appears that these are the two major issues on the site at this point in time.
I have no questions. I know that the applicant would like to do a presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, my name is Mark Osborne, and so just to give you a little bit of background, I'm actually the owner of this property. When Chick-fil-A comes in, I don't pick the site, I don't pick the building, I don't have any dialogue, I just get the keys when it's finished. And so in my original package, there was supposed to be signage on the building as well as a couple other additional signage that was presented to me. So if you all could feel my frustration when a week before I find out that I don't have a monument sign, which I know it wasn't approved at this board, but that's what was presented to me, as well as I was supposed to be on the 40-foot sign. I've been working with Jenna from day one trying to figure out what happened, because even between Chick-fil-A and the landlord, there was no communication with me as the local business owner in Colerain as to what happened. We get calls every day about, are you on Colerain? When do you open? Do you exist in Colerain? And it's very hard to interrupt business for people that are dining in with us to constantly take those calls, and they will say, well, hey, we're right in front of the mall. We can't find you. We are not a unique Chick-fil-A. There's 5 of this design built for just lots like this, so we can come and serve Colerain and be an impact on the community. That's one of the things that obviously we want to do. So for me, I've been trying to find out the same question. What happened to our signage? For 3 months, I reached out to what I believe is the old owner of the lot, and they would not return my calls. We've reached out and asked Jenna, as well as I believe his name was Frank to reach out as well. And we've done our due diligence to find out. They were just actually out on our site probably a month ago, and said, hey, when do we get on the signage? And they says, well, you'll never be on our sign because we sold you. So apparently our little yellow line, I don't even know who owns us, to be completely transparent with you right now. So I know that we went for sale, and so the shared agreement to the parking stays. We get to have that, but we have a new owner, which has no signage to offer us. And so,
let me get this right. I'm having a little trouble getting a hold of this.
yeah.
They just sold part of it, your part?
The owners of, I believe it's Colliers is the group, said that they sold us. So
That's just your lot.
that's just my lot. Now, and so what I asked is that they write a letter to me saying that I will never be on their sign, and they did. I requested that, and I did send.
It should have been in your packet.
Yeah. So they did inform me that I will never be on that sign. They were very nice about it. But for me, there's a couple reasons why. And for one, the signage is to let guests know where we are and to stop the traffic against us. We have horns hawked. I mean, people yell. I mean, they come in, they yell at my 16-year-old young lady that works for me. Where are you at? You guys need better visibility. And my thing is I'm trying to remove that pressure from the team. Chick-fil-A does very well, but they don't know where we are. We're very busy to be nice to help inform them. The parking lot, we probably average 1 to 2 accidents on our parking lot every day. And we had one right before I came here. The fire department's actually at our store doing an event tonight, and a car backed up into it. It's nonstop. I've been working to make it better for Colerain, to make it better for us so that the visibility, so people know how to enter, how to exit. Where is Chick-fil-A? But I've literally stood on my roof several times and watched. It is a zoo. They don't know where we are. They're doing U-turns, trying to get into our establishment. That's also on Colerain Avenue. So ultimately, my goal is to serve Colerain, and one of the things is to get signage to help us educate people where we are. The monument sign would help because there is a 40-foot sign right that blocks my entire building. And so it will improve the flow. It will improve, and it allows us to have, truthfully, more sales so we can do more things with the community. That's what we're here for. That's what we're all about, and that's what I would ask that you all support. And that's the best information, Mark, that I have for you. And I wish I had more, but I literally a week before I opened, I found all this stuff out. I had no idea. That's what I spent my last 6 months at, is trying to figure out how to get signage and parking instead of focusing on my brand, my team. I'm trying to fix parking issues since I've opened.
Did I understand that there was a blanket agreement on parking with the landlord or whomever?
Yeah, so I wasn't a part of those conversations, but we did get that approved through Chick-fil-A. The legal team as well as the real estate team has said that we do, and they provided that to Jenna as well, that we can have as many spots as we'd like on that site. And that's where most of our customers do park currently, is they don't want to deal with our lot. They don't come on it.
Okay, so have you gotten any input from the Colerain Police Department in terms of the safety flow and the reduction of accidents?
Yeah, so the major is from the chief. We've also had some of the police out on our roof to watch and give recommendations. And so this recommendation, exactly, I cannot remember the police, but he helped me draw this up to represent. And then Chick-fil-A and the team that does this stuff more than I do has actually came up with the final plan to present to you all.
They didn't give you anything formally to address the safety concerns?
Just the verbal from, I'll let you answer
Ms.
that.
Smith, it was the letter from Chief Denny. We saw it back in May. That was also included in your packet for this time. There was the letter citing the safety concerns as well as the strain on his officers, because the officers, particularly when they first opened, were out there every day directing traffic in the middle of the parking lot, rather than dealing with some higher priority issues.
So have they been involved in the updated version or request?
Meaning, have they reviewed the site plans?
Correct.
I have not taken it over to Chief Denny for review, no ma'am.
Okay. That's the end of my question.
Yeah, so I mean we have police officers. We actually offer a discount to them, so they're in our restaurant. I feel very confident that we've talked to several of them about that this is the recommendation. Believe me, I don't want to lose parking spots. That's actually makes it a lot harder on me. But our 60% of our business is drive-through, 60% plus, and so we want to make it easy for Colerain tenants and users. That's the goal. So if I could have my goal, I'd go back and redesign the whole thing, but I don't have that money to do that, nor do I have the capacity to do that. It won't happen.
So you think it's going to eliminate the safety concerns that were previously
Yeah,
there?
because what it'll do, base of most of the parking issues, because they accommodated, I think it was to 18 or 19 feet, we actually shrunk the lot. I went back and watched the minutes, and they shrunk the lot to allow for parking spaces. There's not enough space to back in and out, and what I believe it wasn't accounted for is when you have that drive-through car coming down there, these people can't back out. It disrupts flow. It causes anxiety, horns honking. And so there's constantly people backing into each other is what it is because of the limited space. And I don't know at what point, I don't know whose part it is or whether it's Chick-fil-A's presentation or not, but they literally back right into to the cars that are in the drive-through. So what I've done temporarily is I've coned it off and moved it around, and I've upset a lot of people, I've lost a lot of customers to try to limit the accidents and just take it off of our lot. So I'm just trying to do whatever I can to help, because what I was told by the police is that because it's private property, there's nothing that they can do besides help them exchange information, and we're just getting a lot of the blame on it when we just sell chicken. we don't do that, if that makes sense.
It'd be nice if I had input from police, since they're the ones that had to respond.
Yeah, and I feel.
I don't, as far as the way staff reviews these reports, I don't know that we've ever taken a specific site plan proposal to the police department for review. I do know that I've spoken with Chief Denny about this overall, and when I did speak with him back in, it was April or May, whenever he penned that letter to us, it was in support of whatever we could do to improve this flow. So it's staff's opinion that flow will work better in a counterclockwise motion, one counterclockwise motion around the building, and then adding that drive-through lane. Essentially, it's not so much the drive-through lane that I think staff is interested in, but removing that row of parking that is between the sidewalk, the pavement in front of the building, and the drive-through lane, because there's just nowhere to go for that parking. So staff does feel strongly that this will improve, the challenge being that we lose 10 more spaces in this new layout, but since we know that they can be accommodated for in the overall shared parking agreement, staff feels like it's a good trade-off, and based on the input received from this board when we were here in May, we made those changes to the angled parking, and it was what staff heard from this board was essentially whatever else we can do to continue to make improvements on the site, this board would be open to hearing. So this was kind of what came of that discussion from this board, as well as the continued issues on the site with respect to parking. So I just to kind of more specifically speak to the police input, I'm not sure that staff has ever gone specifically to the police department on an overall site plan layout. If that's something you would like to see staff do in the future, I'd be happy to do that. But I don't know that we've ever specifically done that in the past.
I just thought since it was a safety issue, that would be number one priority.
Are you suggesting that you would like staff to do this in the future, is take it to the police department for their
I mean,
review?
if it's a police matter, if it's a safety concern, I think it's very appropriate. It's my opinion, though.
Okay, staff can.
I would have to agree, not necessarily, Jenna, every case that comes here, but in this particular case, since Chief Denny went on record with a letter to us, I think it would have been a good follow-up with him to say, what do you think on this? If he had remained silent on the issue initially, then I think we're okay.
Is that all, Mrs. Smith?
That's it.
Hey, Mr. Grody, do you have any
Well,
questions?
I want to ask Mr. Osborne, you said you are the owner of the site. That's what I want to clarify. Do you own the land and
No,
the building and the business, or what?
I'm the owner of the franchise. So the building is actually owned by whoever currently owns the site. Chick-fil-A owns the building. We lease the space. And currently I'm trying to figure out who that is through, just being completely transparent.
So the owner of the rest of the shopping center still owns the land?
What their words were to me is that they sold the lot that I'm on.
To whom?
I don't know who that information is, and they would not disclose it to me at the time. And I don't know if it wasn't a final deal yet. To be honest, I could not tell you. And we've reached out to them several times to try to find out.
Or do you own the building?
Chick-fil-A owns the building.
Okay.
I do not. I'm just a franchise owner.
From Chick-fil-A?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That clarified it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ferry?
I don't know, it's a mess, and I think we're all willing to do what we can do to try to straighten it out, make it as best as we can. It's sort of water over the dam, it's there. Hopefully we learned our lesson and don't let it get this far the next time. I think it's just gotten out of control on that particular site and bouncing back and forth with different owners and what have you. It's out of control. See what we can do to make it the best we can.
Thank you.
I agree with Mr. Faring. Seems like the deeper we dig, the more bizarre it gets. I'm still having trouble with selling your lot to somebody else on a parking lot. I just don't get that. But hey, who am I? I don't have any questions or comments on.
Yeah. If I can just, the last thing I'll just say is just from going back and watching the minutes when I first got here the week of, the number one thing, and it was a gentleman that'll sit down here, he's not here present today, and forgive me, I don't know his name. One of the things he said was the biggest issue was getting the building on the ground, and so signage was very briefly touched and moved on. And the Themmer one says when you got a 40, I remember when he said when you got a 40-foot sign, he'll be fine. That's all he needs. And I agreed, but I just asked that did not happen. I have no control over that, and I would just ask some support so I can continue to do what I do and support Colerain, and I promise that I will deliver on that message, but it would be helpful to allow guests and Colerain people know where we are. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Farron, do you have any comments you'd like to make before we make the motion?
Just before we vote on the signs that we're changing, or they want to change on the buildings, We're going north and south and the west side of the building. The front of the building will get a larger sign.
No, the west side of the building, that sign will remain, that Chick-fil-A, the,
The small one is there now.
yes, that will remain. That same sign will then be replicated on the south side of the building.
Okay.
And then that same sign, so 3 of those same signs will then, it'll be put on the north face of the building, removing that square logo that's currently there.
It'll be on the Colerain side, Colerain Avenue side, or?
There is one on the Colerain Avenue side, that's the west side. We're going to add one on the south side, and we're going to replace the one on the north side. So there would be signage on 3 sides of the building.
Mr. Grody, do you have any comments, questions?
Just a few. For the matter of the record, as I studied the plans, there are 2 light poles that need to be relocated. If that makes a difference or not, but one is in the north end of the building where that landscape island is coming out. And then the other one is at the other end so that they don't have to drive over the curbing. The curbing's going to be removed. And there's a light pole in there.
I will have to double check the plans. I don't believe that that will change any of your conditions
Right.
or variances. I don't recall there being, I apologize. That was missed by staff. There is a second light pole then that would need to be moved, relocated, yes.
It is in our proposal, we are planning to take it. You have to take it out, because you can't make that turn.
Right.
So we are planning to remove that.
Okay.
Anything else?
Ms. LeCount, on this paper, your paper from staff, I just want to make absolutely sure in item number 2, near the end, it says this agreement indicates a blanket sharing of spaces throughout commercial center, et cetera, et cetera. Landlord has provided a letter indicating their awareness of additional parking space absorption. Okay, that says one thing to me. Does the letter you have in hand also in writing grant permission for that to happen?
Yes, sir, that was actually included in your packet as well.
Okay, because I read that and I didn't thoroughly pick up that, but that's, as long as you're comfortable with it, that's, I'm okay with it. And then in relation to the signage, sir, I've driven up there 2 or 3 times, both north and south. And let me start coming from the south, approaching your building. I tried to envision in my mind how would a monument sign help me, and with the foliage and landscaping, et cetera, from all the business prior to your building, and the street signs for traffic flow and markers for the route numbers on the road and so on and so forth, I came up with the conclusion that that monument sign isn't going to help for people coming north on Colerain. However, that's my opinion. However, the south side building sign where you want to put Chick-fil-A, boy, that's going to stand out much better than your monument sign. That's what's going to hit people's eye first. And I have the same conclusions coming south on Colerain because of all the other goings on there, let's just call it that monument sign, even at 10 feet or 15 feet, I don't think is going to do much. I would encourage you to get those Chick-fil-A signs on the north and south sides as big as are allowable under our standards, so that's going to pull in more business, I think, than the monument sign. So those are the only questions or comments I have.
Mrs. Smith?
I have no further comment.
Okay. The only thing I agree on the monument sign, I'm not too sure how much good it's going to do you, because I agree with Ms. LeCount that sign that we had some problems with, the sign at McDonald's, and she's correct, the way that's in there, we tried to explain to them it wasn't going to work, because first of all, it's in there, it's tilted, it's not straight, and if there are cars parked in there, you can't see that sign anyway. but they, for some reason, we passed it. And I agree with Mr. Grody, the bigger the signs you have on the building, I think will do more good than a monument sign will, because I have a feeling, I don't know about other people, I don't pay much attention to monument signs when I'm driving up Colerain Avenue. And you don't have a lot of time. I mean, you gotta look quickly anyway, because you need to be. Colerain Avenue is interesting, to say the least. And I think all the rest of it is fine. I have nothing against the monument sign, but I think that you would be better served if you spent your money on a larger sign on the ends of the building. That's my opinion.
Would you mind if I speak to that? Is that okay?
Fine.
Yeah.
So all of those things were currently in the budget, and so that's money that's allowed to pour in. It just didn't follow the budget that was supposed to be presented to us, and so I'm already approved for all those things with the support of you all. The monument sign is truthfully one of the number one things that customers have asked for, because we are known as, Chick-fil-A is a well-known brand, but our site is not a typical Chick-fil-A building. There was accommodations. One, they made this site, like I said, there's 4 of my building type. And so we're trying to help educate people that is a Chick-fil-A. I agree with you that the south side will help, the north side. But like I said, for me, it's, hey, there's a lot of those monument signs down Colerain Avenue. It seems to be what customers are used to. And so for that reason, I would just ask to reconsider, because that is what they know. And we will, it is very beautiful design. It won't be anything like that 40-foot tacky, terrible, god-awful thing. We'll make it clean, and we'll make sure that it stays up to par. But the main thing is for basically, hey, that's what has been asked, because they're having trouble finding us. I do agree that all of them will help. But I'd hate to lose that monument sign, because that is one of the original things that was presented to me. Again, I know that doesn't mean anything to everybody here, but it's what I thought I was getting, and it does help a lot for our business. I promise you that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments?
I just want to make absolutely sure the message board on there is not electronic.
100% not. No, we will not spend money on that.
And you're not going to come back knocking on our door to want to make it electronic?
No, honestly, my issues have been the same issues all the way through. And the only reason I presented these things is because I was not informed. And so as a business owner, it's very, very frustrating. And Chick-fil-A has got an earful as well, out of respect, of course, because they've blessed me and my family tremendously. But they are learning a lot on how to make sure these things, this communication does not happen again, because I'm the one that's impacted by it as a local franchise owner. So I don't want any LEDs. I don't want none of that nonsense. That's expenses that I don't want to have to deal with, especially when they break. That's expensive. So no, it will be the traditional major signs in there.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the minor modification to a final development plan on case ZA 2014-09 Chick-fil-A. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve ZA 2014-09 Chick-fil-A 9470 Colerain Avenue, with all the recommendations that were made to us by staff, with the exception of the monument sign. I'm making a motion that be deleted from this consideration.
So that's number 1, correct?
I'm sorry.
Number 1 item on here? Under the approval.
That would be removal of recommendation.
Yes, number 1.
Yeah.
Can staff clarify very quickly? Your recommendation is to remove the condition on the monument sign, not the monument sign itself?
Remove the monument sign.
Okay, because removing item 1 does not remove the monument sign. It removes the height restriction of 10 feet.
I'm saying remove the monument sign from being allowed to be constructed. If you get a second, I have another comment about it. if you get a second. on
I'll
it.
second that.
that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept minor modification to final development plan CA 2014-09 Chick-fil-A with the exception of the monument sign. Is there any discussion before the vote?
I'll make a comment, Mr. Chairman, if you all would take a look at this page from the notes that we were given, which is a rendition of the sign itself. Looking at the dimensions on there, from the top of the base to the top of the sign is 9 feet 1 inches. I'm assuming that the base is another 2 feet, so that would make it about 11 feet. If the total permitted, assuming we left this in and allowed it, would be 10 feet. Coming down Colerain Avenue on either side, the only part that a motorist is really going to see with a quick snap is the logo, not the message board, okay, and doubtfully the words Chick-fil-A. And that's where I feel it's just another sign that we don't need, and I encourage the gentleman present tonight to get those signs on the north and south side as large as you possibly can get them. 'Cause that's what hit my eye, coming both ways. And I agree with Mr. Westfall, I was trying to keep my eye on the road at the same time, but that's the reason I'm making this recommendation.
Any other comments? Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Faring,
Yes.
Mr. Grody,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Westfall.
Reluctantly, I'll vote aye. Next on the agenda is public hearings. There's none scheduled. Next is informal concept review. There's none scheduled. Old business. Is there any old business? New business. Is there any new business?
No, sir.
Administration. Do you have anything? Announcements. The next meeting is October 18th, 2016. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have a couple items, if I may. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I have heard, and I don't know if it's fact or not, that has Kroger put their project on hold for the time being?
I have no update on Kroger or their timeline.
Okay. The word I'm hearing is that they're putting it on hold until they get their Dent store built first.
I have nothing official.
Okay. Have we had a resolution to the Goodyear store issue with the additional 10 feet of pavement in the back of the building?
They have been issued a notice of violation. So we are still working on the time frame for that.
Okay. And then my last one is, and I don't know if we have any dealing in this at all, but are there any Colerain Township rules, regulations, or whatever prohibiting people from standing on intersections and asking for money?
That would be an item that you would need to address through the police department.
I can address part of that because we go to the Friday meeting they have with the coffee with the chiefs, and they are working on it. So it is in process, so they are working on that. They don't like it either. So, okay, and Chair, we still entertain a motion to adjourn. Somebody needs to make the motion. I haven't made it. Make it. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.